Is it warm in here or is it me?
Can you hear me through here?
I can hear you. Good evening. I'm going to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Elmhurst Zoning and Planning Commission. Before we get to business, we need to establish that everyone can hear us. My microphone just went on. So, Eileen, do you want to do that?
Yes. So I'm just establishing that people can hear me, not taking roll, correct? Okay, Emily, can you hear and respond?
Yes, I can hear you.
Commissioner Burns,
Yep.
Commissioner Calloway,
We're getting some bad feedback too.
Commissioner Garland,
We're on mute. Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Pittman,
Yes, I can hear you.
Commissioner Snyder.
But I'm getting some significant feedback.
Okay. Commissioner Uditsky.
Yes, I can hear you.
Mike, can you hear us in the public comment room? Mike Kopp?
Yeah.
Okay. We are having, I can hear some feedback too, so hold on just a minute. We're going to see if we can get that fixed.
Right, while we're trying to get that fixed, I'll just remind everyone, as soon as you finish talking, to please turn your microphone off. So we're looking into why there's all this feedback. So.
Chair Rose, just so you know, it appears, I know you guys are in the same room, but when you're talking, we don't get it, but when Eileen's talking, we do. So I'm not sure why that is.
Where's the little
Can you hear me now?
Click this to right here. Click this little.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to talk?
Can you hear me?
That's better, Eileen.
Okay, are we good to go? Okay. If anyone cannot hear us, please let us know, but we won't go through the full roll again. Everyone said they could. I'm going to ask Eileen Franz to please call the roll in order to establish a quorum. Before she does that, I just want to make sure that everyone, when you are not speaking, if you will please make sure to hit your microphone, and I'm saying that for myself as well. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Burns,
Here.
Commissioner Callaway,
Here.
Commissioner Garland,
Here.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Here.
Commissioner McCoy,
Here.
Commissioner Pittman,
Here.
Commissioner Snyder,
Here.
Commissioner Uditsky,
Here.
Chair Rose.
Here. We have a quorum. Excellent. It's nice to see everybody again after a bit of a hiatus. Fall is here, and so are we. So, first order of business is any public comment. Mike, is there anyone in the public comment room who would like to make a public comment?
No, there is not.
Thank you. And I will close that section of the agenda. The next item of business is the receipt of written communications. Eileen, have we received any written communication?
Any written communication we've received was placed on board docs.
Okay, thank you very much. There will be some changes in tonight's agenda, and I will ask Eileen to please detail those changes for you. In essence, several cases are being deferred, but I will let her advise us of those.
Thank you. Yes, case 20P12, which is a request for variations in a subdivision on Shady Lane, is being continued. Our Public Works Department was going to do some review of some of the storm sewer near the home, and they were not available to do that until this week. So the case is being continued to October 6th. And then today, the applicant for the Mariano's gas station, which is 20P16, reached out. They are still working on the lighting plan and wanted to take a little more time to work on that. So they requested that the case be continued to October 6th.
Okay, thank you very much. Eileen, mute here. Thank you. I know, it's a difficult thing to remember, trust me. We'll go to the next item of business, which is case number 20 ZBA 07. The minutes, I'm sorry. Our first item of business is approval of the minutes of the August 18th meeting of the Zoning and Planning Commission. Can I have a motion to approve and a second to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Garland. And a second?
Second.
Commissioner Callaway, thank you very much. Are there any additions, corrections, omissions that anyone would like to make to these minutes? Okay, seeing none, I will ask Eileen Franz to please call the roll to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Commissioner Garland,
Yes.
Commissioner Callaway,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Pittman,
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder,
yes,
Commissioner Uditsky,
Yes.
Chair Rose.
Yes, thank you. Those minutes are approved. So,
I forgot to make sure
all right, we need to check whether the court reporter can hear us. I'll do that. The court reporter, are you there and can you hear us?
I can hear you, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we will proceed then. First item of business before us then is case number 20 ZBA 07, which is for the Claire Fotopoulos variation at 186 South Kenilworth. I will ask city staff to please introduce this item to us.
Thank you. I can introduce case 20 ZBA 07. This is a case that is a request for a variation from fence height requirement from 6 feet to 8 feet along the rear lot line. The application was filed on August 17th, 2020. The date of the legal notice of public hearing was August 27, 2020. The date of the posting of the sign was August 28th, 2020. The first class mailing of notice was August 27th, 2020. And tonight, September 15th, is the public hearing. I have the applicant, Bob Clare, in the applicant room with me, as well as the property owner on the phone. I also want to make note that we have received a letter from the property owner to the north at 186 South Kenilworth stating that they have reviewed the case and they essentially are in support of the request. And I will get this on board docs for review as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Before we go any further, I'm going to ask the court reporter to please swear in anyone who chooses who will plan to testify. And Emily, I'm going to ask you to please inform the applicant who is on the phone that they will have to swear that they are being sworn in if they wish to talk. And Mike, if there's anyone in the public comment room, Emily, can you please turn your microphone off? Okay, thank you. Okay, if there is anyone in the public comment room who wishes to comment on this case, to please stand and be sworn in. And I would say for, let me ask you this, Emily, is the applicant for the next case there as well?
Yes, the applicant, the general contractor is in the room with me, and the property owner applicant is on the phone.
I will ask them as well to please be sworn in at this time too. Let's get everyone sworn in at the same time. So will you please raise your right hand, and the court reporter will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
I can confirm both applicants were sworn in.
Thank you very much. All right. I'm going to ask then the applicants to testify. To please explain their variation request Just so you know, our normal procedure is that everyone on the commission has read all the material, and we ask commissioners, if they're not familiar with the site, to please visit it as well. So you can be assured that we've done that. So I'm going to ask you to please explain your variation. Again, keep in mind, we are setting the public record. So in particular, you might want to address yourself to the standards for variation that exist.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, we're working with one issue, the west wall.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Bob Clare with Wise Investment Builders.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So the neighbors on all sides are in agreement that this is something that they don't have issue with. Right now, there's a substantial topography issue on this property. Coming from the southwest, it drops off almost 4 feet to this property, 186. And the property to the south is, like I say, 4 feet higher than the property we're working with. That fence is a new fence going on there. It's 6 foot high. So in effect, the top of that fence will be 10 feet over the top of our property. So that then goes west and will end up at a right angle to the west line. And at the west line, at that high point there, the fence will be only 4 feet high across the west line. So once again, it's all topography based. There is a concrete retaining wall running on the entire west wall or west property line. That is owned by the condo association to our west. And with that being said, that fence that's an existing fence that is 4 feet high on top of that wall is in great need of repair. And the condo association had full intentions of replacing it anyway. So today is their lucky day. At my client's expense, he's going to put this new fence all the way across, which benefits them as well. And we are not exceeding any height limitation in that. We'll be replacing what's existing all the way across the west line. Where the 8 foot comes in to be an issue is on the northwest part of the property. The topography falls off there, which a lot of it's been undermined with removal of debris and whatnot, cleaning out the property area back there. It's been let go for quite a few years. Will be built back up again to make it a full 8 foot height. So from the north corner to the south corner of the west line, it tapers from 4 feet to 8 feet. So in effect, it is a very short distance that the fence is actually at 8 feet. The majority is going to be 6 foot and less, but it is just to that one point where it's lower. Now, keeping in mind, there is a 4 foot high concrete barrier retaining wall that's sticking out of the ground there already. So it really is not impacting anyone other than beautifying the area. And that's why all the neighbors are looking forward to it, including my client, that by carrying that fence over, it covers up the brick wall or the concrete wall, as well as replacing the fence that's already there. That's pretty much the whole thing in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to mute your microphone at this point. And at this point, I want to ask if any of the commissioners have any questions. That's the next procedure, and I would encourage you to listen to those. I'll handle your microphone and turn it on and off, so you don't have to worry about that. We'll ask if commissioners have questions. First one I see is Commissioner Snyder. Can you hang on just a moment? Please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, Chair Rose. Yeah, so the proposed fence will not sit or will not rise any higher than the existing fence at the condominium property. Is that correct? It will rise to the same height as the existing fence now.
Correct, to a point. There is a brick structure that I believe they put up just for additional safety in case someone was to back up and go over the wall, part of their parking lot. The cedar fence that abuts that, the one that is rotting away, is about 3 to 4 inches maybe below that brick wall. The association agrees that they'd like to see that level all the way across, which puts them at maybe 4 foot 3 inches on the new fence, which technically they could put a 6 foot fence up on their property if they chose to, which would obviously be ridiculous looking at it from the east. So it's a great compromise all the way around.
Okay, and then I just wanted to ask, is the condominium association then planning to remove their portion of wood fence?
Correct. Yeah, so we're not going to have a sandwich. We're not going to have fence to fence, which is, you know, a vermin attraction or leaves or for a young child to fall in between or any of that. That's why they agreed in doing what we're doing to clean it all up and minimize any issues.
Okay, but then that leaves me to question, so what's left is because the driveway of the condo association sits 4 feet higher than the property that the fence will be installed on, there will be a gap between the retaining wall and the new fence. How, I mean, unless that new fence is going to be sandwiched right up against the retaining wall. So I'm just worried about that, you know, some small gap in a 4 foot crevice and maybe a small animal or a small child getting stuck in there.
Very perceptive. Exactly the point that we addressed with the condo association. We're using metal posts instead of wood posts for number one, which minimize any void in between, and they will be anchored to the concrete wall. So there's virtually no void in between the two. So it's really, like I say, it's the perfect scenario.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Callaway?
No, I was just going to ask Commissioner Snyder to mute because I was having a difficult time hearing the applicant, but I think I got it.
Any other questions from commissioners? You can raise your hand. Commissioner McCoy?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, so this
Yes.
foot fence is going to go straight across the back west end of this property in question, all the way.
Correct.
Right. Okay. And how about that shed? Who owns that shed? I wasn't quite sure. Where does that belong?
The shed was moved already in accordance to Elmer's code. When we purchased the property, when my client purchased the property, that was in a request to Bill, the neighbor to the south, that initially was actually hanging over onto my client's property. And he willingly moved it south to be compliant with the proper setbacks. It's an unusual slice of property. It projects into my client's property 7 feet from the south line heading north, and then approximately 30 feet back west. It's a big corner section there. That property was sold to him from IC. So he purchased that additional property maybe 10, 15 years ago, whatever it was, when they tore down that house that was behind there. So it's a little different in how it's sliced up, but it is what it is, and it's not going to be changed. But everything is in compliance now as far as the shed is concerned.
Okay. Well, now how about the fence along the south property line? There's going to be a fence along the south property line as well, correct?
That's the one that I spoke of earlier that is surrounding the shed. So that fence, the top of that fence, will actually be approximately 10 feet above our base property line. We're building a retaining wall in there, starting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to hold back the earth that's there now. You should have some photos of that area, which depicts all of this before and after the old fence was taken down. It was fully rotted and dangerous because it was hanging over the property. So a retaining wall, a block retaining wall, will be installed over the next few days here. And then the fence goes back up on the upper level of that property. So in effect, south line will be from approximately 10 feet on the furthest east part of that south line, heading west where it's going to tee into at a right angle to the fence that we're talking about on the west side. It would be 6 foot at that point. So it goes from 6 foot there, steps down to 4 foot on the condo property, heads north at 4 foot all the way, and then steps down again to 6 foot on the entire north line. So you got a nice incremental step down from south to north, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else who has any questions? Any other commissioner? Commissioner Pittman.
Just a quick question about the brick wall section. Is that coming
Yes.
down too, or is that?
No.
That will stay. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, because that's fully on top of the wall.
Right.
So in effect, on the east side of the retaining wall, that brick is flush
Right.
all the way up. So therefore, this particular style of fence is pretty much designed to accommodate that scenario as well. As in addition, it matches the neighbor's fence 2 doors over, so the neighbor to our north benefits by 2 free fences that match. So he's happy.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other commissioner have a question? I have a question for Eileen. Actually, I have several questions about this. One, when we calculate fence height, is it conceivable that someone has a retaining wall and then can build 6 feet on top of that, or how do we measure that? Could you please let me know?
I mean, the wall would count. We'd have to look at the particular site, but in certain circumstances, the wall would count as fence as well, depending on where it falls.
So it's not possible. Can you mute? So it's not possible for someone to build a retaining wall and then put 6 feet on top of it. That's really included in the calculation of height.
I would have to look at the retaining wall. It might be, it might not, depending on how it flows into the rest of the property.
Another question, have we ever given a variance for an 8-foot high fence on a residential property that does not abut commercial?
Not that I am aware of.
I have a question then for the applicant. In your application, the standards for variance, the first one is that there's something unique about the property. And I just want to know, it sounds like you are changing that at this point. Because your original statement here is there's currently a visually unappealing fence on the west side of the property, which is 8 feet tall. There's also an existing deteriorating, extremely unsafe cedar fence and retaining wall on the side of the property that's 10 foot tall. So originally that was your rationale for the unique circumstances. It sounds like you are adding to that at this point. It sounds like originally what you're saying is what's unique about this property is that the neighbor has something that you don't want to look at, that nobody wants to look at, which doesn't seem to me to be all that unique. But you're saying something else at this point. Can you please clarify that?
So starting out, the fence on the south had to be replaced. And you do have the photos of all this, correct? Okay.
Yes,
So-
yes, we do.
Okay, so you can see that the retaining wall was giving way and falling, the fence was caving in, so that needed to be addressed. The area, once again, it's really not requiring an 8-foot fence in a sense, because you discussed stacking on top of a retaining wall. That topography on the upper level is level all the way to York Road. And they have a 6-foot fence on the condo association's property to their south and to their north. And to the east, they could, because that is their grade, it's everything off of grade. On their area, they could absolutely do 6 foot straight across the west line, which would be their east line, connecting their two fences north and south. But they're not doing that. By doing what they're doing, it is holding it down and makes a lot more sense. All we're doing is basically replacing that. And there's an area of our fence where the ground falls off in the last, I'd say 10 feet, where it goes down to 8 feet and then drains off into a rear yard drain. So in a sense, the fence is really not an 8-foot fence all the way. It's just one little section of it that it is. The overall height does not change from what's there now. It's not like you've got a flat surface abutted to icy parking lot and you just don't want anybody peeking over your fence and you're going with an 8-foot fence all the way. This is a absolutely unique set of circumstances to have a retaining wall that high all the way across your property, and your property grade, unlike typical Elmhurst being flat or low, pitching from south to north as it is. So the overall effect is not changing as far as a visual and height limitation.
So what you're saying now is that what you're saying is unique is not that you don't want to look at your neighbor's ugly fence. What you're saying, it's something else. I'm just looking at your original application where that is what you said. So what you're saying now is that it really is topography. It's not visual.
But inevitably, it ends up visual, and the beneficiary of this, as well as ourselves, is the condo association. They're grinning from ear to ear because they were going to replace their rotten fence anyway. So here we come along, and we're going to do it for them. So they have no issue with it. So it was a matter of timing. When I filled this out initially, I did not know exactly what their response would be. Talking to Scott, the president there, very nice guy and very rational, and we talked it through, and he's additionally going to use our fence company to continue replacing his rotten fence that is just north of that brick wall to his corner of his north lot line. So he's going to match up the fence so it's all continuous on their property.
Okay, oops, hold on. Yeah, I cut off the last comment. So
I said it's a win-win for everybody. Did you catch that he's going to replace his existing fence all the way? Okay.
I got it. Thank you. Okay, yeah, because I'm just concerned about a rationale being I don't want to look at something of my neighbor's this ugly. I mean, I got to tell you, 50% of the people in Elmhurst would be in here saying, I want a variation because I don't want to look at something my neighbor's got in their yard. So I want to make sure that there's some reason other than I think my neighbor has an ugly fence for us to grant a variation. So I want to clarify that, what you're saying.
I appreciate that.
Okay. But Commissioner Hoffman, you had a question? Are you raising your hand?
Yes, Chair Rose, thank you. Just, I guess, a point of clarification regarding the height of a fence. In a situation like this where you've got a significant amount of topography change and you want to keep the height of the fence consistent across the back of the property lot line, wouldn't it be reasonable to assume that the height of the fence or the size of the fence would have to vary from one end to the next in order to keep it level?
Once again, please refer to the photos of the west line. You'll take note that the existing fence that is 4 foot all the way across. There is the topography to our west on the condo property is level all the way across. The topography change is on our side. So that's where the difference comes in. So it has to be level all the way across. Otherwise, you'd only have a fence that might be 2 feet high on the middle of their property, which obviously is not going to happen, of the condo association property. It has to stay level across there.
Right, and I'm agreeing with you, and I think that's the potential cause for there to be a variation here is the fact that you're looking to keep it level across, and you've got a significant change in topography across the back of the lot line.
That's exactly correct. It creates its own issue, so to speak.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner McCoy?
Thank you. So the fence isn't going to be 8 feet all the way across the west end, because at the end it goes up, that's not going to be an 8-foot fence, because you want it to go straight across the back, right?
Correct.
I mean,
so it'll be 4
property
foot.
slopes down.
Mm-hmm.
So the fence will be 4 feet at one end, but then when you get to the other end, it'll eventually get to 8 feet from the ground.
Exactly right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pittman, you had a question.
Thank you, Chair Rose. Yeah, I had a question going back to the south corner. The previous retaining wall that was falling apart and the fence that was there, that was on your client's property or the other property?
Well, it ended up on my client's property.
Okay.
It all caved over, correct.
So the new retaining wall and the new fence will be on your client's property versus the previous retaining wall and fence were supposed to be on the other property, correct?
Well, what we'll end up doing is the retaining wall, we're going to bring it a few inches on our side of the property line, and discussed with the homeowner to the south. And in doing so, we're going to backfill it heavily with stone for better drainage, because all of the water, I mean, the engineers really chewed this one up to get it approved. The rainwater coming from the southwest, from the parking lot at IC, comes across there and works its way down onto our property. So to avoid any further problems, we're gonna move the wall out a little bit and build up more permeable materials on the backside to let it drain properly. And then the fence will in turn go right back to where it was, and joining up to the neighbor's fence that he has there, where the original one was connected to.
Okay, because I guess that's some clarification, I guess for Eileen, because it seems like depending on where that retaining wall and that fence is and whose property line it's on, they may need a variation for that as well. If it's on the other property line where the grade is higher, then it's not needed. But if it ends up falling on the new property, it seems to me that then it becomes a 10-foot fence. But once again, that's, I guess, a question for Eileen.
So the way I am understanding it is the retaining wall is starting on the property to the south and then slightly extending onto the property that we're talking about. So it's not like there's a significant, it's not like there's the property to the south has a different grade, and this property is building a wall that's going to be taller than the property to the south and then trying to put a fence on it. The way I understand it is the grade is continuing. The retaining wall will go slightly onto this property. So I would think it would be okay to place the fence on it, because we're not creating a wall that is taller. It's sort of a continuation of the property to the south. I will take a look at it with Mr. Claire, though, and confirm that I'm understanding that correctly and that it is okay.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure we weren't missing something here.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes, thank you, Chair Rose. So Chair Rose actually brought up an interesting point when she questioned about an 8-foot fence being allowed as an installation in a residential area. So when I visited the property, I actually pulled into the parking lot at IC to sort of look at the corner, and what I noticed is that the neighbor to the south actually has an 8-foot fence. So it looks like what they did was construct a 6-foot fence and then construct on top of that an additional 2-foot trellis, effectively making an 8-foot fence. So I guess I would have to ask Eileen, you know, what are the rules around that? And then, you know, my observation would be that our applicant's fence is actually going to be sitting lower than their neighbor to the south's fence as you move along that whole property line, moving north to south.
So that property is not permitted to have an 8-foot fence. We do allow 8-foot fences when someone is adjacent to commercial property. Or an alley that's adjacent to commercial property, but IC parking lot is zoned civic institutional. So that fence is technically not in compliance with our code.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner have a question they want to ask? Okay, seeing none, it appears as if there is someone in the public comment room. This is the time, is that correct? This is the time, let me first say that public testimony, whoever is there, you have about, you have 5 minutes. Please give us your name and please, yes, Mike?
He was not sworn in. He was not here during the swearing in, so he'll need to be sworn in.
He was not sworn in. So let me ask the court reporter to please swear in person from the public who wants to give testimony.
Scott, say.
Do you solemnly, I'm sorry, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Then please, you have 5 minutes for comments and let's hear what's on your mind.
Sure, thank you. I was watching at home before as this started and heard misrepresentations by the applicant having just spoken, Mr. Clare. The question Ms. Snyder first asked about a gap has not been resolved. Mr. Clare is suggesting that the fence be affixed to the retaining wall, but that has not been finally agreed between the parties. The condo association members have been texting me and asking whether or not we had agreed to that in any case. I had to let them know that I was jumping in my car and driving over. Furthermore, the driveway doesn't drain to the property 186. There's new drainage, manhole, and so again, kind of misrepresentation. Having just sworn myself in, I feel the obligation to be truthful, to be objective. The fence that appears 8 feet was built at 6 feet, and it was 2 years before that property owner put the trellis on top. He fully understood that it was supposed to be a 6-foot fence and waited 2 years before he then put that additional decorative feature on the top of the fence. And so I've had concerns about that as well over the course of the past few years. I'm sure you can go back and preview or review the application and the licensure, the approval for that fence. In terms of the contours of the land, there certainly is that slope that was being described that I measured today was 8'8" and to the top of our brick wall. And so I suppose he's proposing to put 8 inches of fill at least, anticipating some settling, which would again change the topography of the drainage. They built a huge dry well on that land because they have had drainage problems. If we can't come to terms with how that fence should be affixed. It would need to be on their property, on the Florianopolis property. And so I sense that there would need to be a gap if there can't be some agreement made. We have a number of condo association owners that have some concerns about it being affixed and on our wall. And so with that, I missed a little bit of it while I was driving over, but wanted to make these points as I watched both at home and since I got here to the room 2-3. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you, do you represent the condo association, just what your position is with them?
I am the president of the association, but the letter that we transmitted, again, was somewhat misrepresented. It suggested, as we're going through the documents, that we were in support of the fence. In fact, if you read the letter carefully, it says we do not contest the fence in terms of the height variation. But as to whether or not it is mounted on our property, it was silent. And so while we do not object, we certainly don't necessarily support it.
So I want to make sure we clarify your position because we are considering the variation. So you are not necessarily speaking against the variation. What you are speaking towards is how that will be, how that plays out, how the fence itself is going to be affixed. You're not saying, you're not opposed to the height of that variation. What you are concerned about, and I don't even know if it's maybe strong to say opposed, what you are concerned about is how that will be affixed in relation to the condo property. Is that a correct interpretation?
I think that's right. And if it is mounted on posts and post holes, and then there would likely be a gap. I didn't see until today the plat survey. It wasn't on the file on the board docs, but at my behest, at my observation, it was posted. We've measured from the steel posts the distance from those to the retaining wall, and it's at northwest corner. It seems to be 15 inches from the retaining wall and 11 inches from the retaining wall at the southwest side of the one of the same property. So there would likely be a gap if a line of sight between the two corner posts of the property markers was established.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask the applicant, I'm going to give the applicant an opportunity. I appreciate your comments to respond to those.
Absolutely. Starting out, the fence to the south facing the parking lot really doesn't have any bearing on anything here, obviously. Whether that was added on to 8 feet, that's nothing to do with what we're doing here. The drainage, if you would like to talk to the city engineers, they battered this thing back and forth because of the high volume of water that they say comes over from that corner and into our property. And then for that, we had to put 2 dry wells on this property, which at a fairly substantial expense because of the volume that they told us is coming through that area, and did fairly extensive studies on it based on what they tell me. As far as false representation, by no means would I do that or mean to do that. Number one, this whole hearing is based on height limitation, not where the fence is going in relationship to the property line proper front and back. Scott and I had spoke at length. He obviously has to deal with, I don't know, 8 or 9 residents in their condo association, and most don't really have a clear understanding of what's going on, I do believe. The fact that they're getting a free fence, and my client additionally and there was no reason to bring this up, but is talking about his willingness to quick deed the fence to them in the event that their concerns need to be satisfied in relationship to any individual selling the property, and to find out that there is someone else has ownership of a fence that's on their property. So my client has no issue with signing that off to them, and that was expressed to Scott as well. I'm sure he has his hands full trying to gather everyone together and understand the same issue. But like I said, the whole point of this meeting, to my understanding, unless I'm incorrect, was a height limitation issue. To step further in regard to the 8'8" or whatever inches it comes to be, it's very soft ground. There was a tremendous amount of debris, bush, rocks, garbage piled back there over the years. And I had my preliminary rough grading crew clear all that stuff out. Now this coming week, we're doing final grading. That's where we bring in pulverized black dirt, smooth everything out, and make sense of everything to pitch properly as required on the survey. So that is yet to be accomplished. That will be done this coming week. So once again, I am not misrepresenting anyone here. It's strictly spilling it out on exactly how the fence is going to be laid out for height limitations. And then Scott and I spoke that in the event that his people don't want the new fence set up against the concrete wall, then we in turn would have to put fence posts in on our side, and at which point we'd have to put a filler or something on top of the wall to avoid, last thing I want is a kid falling in there, but but in addition to vermin moving in. We have enough skunks in this town already. And in this time of year, all the leaves and debris blowing in there, and trying to find someone to clean it all out. So it totally makes sense in every aspect of this whole proposal is to mount this to the wall. It's, I'm the contractor. I'm not going to live there. I represent my client, and I want to do the right thing for everyone, including the neighbors, as we've been building here for almost 40 years. So I think we have a stellar reputation, and it's not based on trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I introduce myself to all my clients, to all the neighbors. When we start the job, I represent them all well. If anything's ever damaged, we repair it. And in addition, if I can save them money in doing what we're doing, it's always welcome. And we continue to maintain our stellar reputation in town.
Thank you, Mr. Clare. Okay, Commissioner Snyder, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Just one question. So if this variation is allowed and the agreement can't be struck between the condo association and the petitioner, and they install the fence with posts on their property line, and then the condo association goes ahead and removes their section of fence, and if they don't replace it or whatever, who's liable for any injury that might occur between the gap in the retaining wall and the fence that was installed, by the petitioner?
I think that's a question that would have to be asked of our legal counsel. I would not, as much as I appreciate the experience of Mr. Clare, and I appreciate the opinion of the public comment, I think that's beyond our purview. I think we would have to get some legal opinion on who would be responsible for that. But thank you for bringing that up. Any other question from a commissioner at this point? Okay, I'm going to move to close the public hearing on this particular case. Before we do, I need to ask Eileen to check whether there's any voicemail has come in. Again, this is one of the oddities that we have by being online. We have to make sure that the public has an opportunity to call in. I'm impressed that The one person who came for public comment was watching it on television and decided they were going to come in. That's impressive. But also may have occurred that people may be watching it and have decided to call in. So Eileen, can you please let us know if anyone has, this will take us, so we'll just have kind of hold on until we hear if there's been any kind of other public input.
Chair Rose, just so you're aware, Scott also called in. Then he wasn't sure whether the call would come through, so then he came in. So Eileen's checking her phone. She may have Scott's voicemail on there.
Great. Thank you for letting us know that.
So I do have one email that came into the planning info email from Diane Skelsa. And the comment is, the association has not approved the builder to fasten a fence to the retaining wall. We are just in discussions.
Good. All right. That being said, we will now close the public hearing at this point. Let me ask commissioners whether it is your pleasure to deliberate this case this evening or whether you want to wait. We have a week. Next week, is there, it's really the question if anyone objects to deliberating tonight, just so the applicant is aware that that generally has become our procedure, is that we would like to try and deliberate on the same evening. But if any one commissioner thinks, I want to know a little more, or I need some time to think about some of this, or I want to go review the physical site again, then we will hold off and not deliberate. So I want to give the opportunity. Is there any commissioner who would choose to not deliberate this evening? Seeing none, I am going to take it unless someone is vocal and lets me know that we will deliberate this evening. And in fact, we will move to do that right at this point. So I'm going to ask if I can get a motion to approve the variance as requested by the applicant, a motion and a second to do that.
So moved.
Wait a minute, do we need to move, vote to deliberate or just? No, okay. So we have a motion from Commissioner Snyder to approve the variance. Do we have a second? Dies if we don't have a second. Commissioner Hoffman. Thank you. All right. I will ask Commissioner Snyder to please lead the deliberation at this point.
Thank you, Chair Rose.
Wait just a moment. She needs to make the motion. She just said, yeah, okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Rose. So reviewing the standards for this variation, number one, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. So what really stands out in this case are the unique topographic challenges of this particular parcel. And I appreciate Chair Rose asking and the petitioner about his application to verify that this in fact was the unique circumstance that really was the driving force behind this request. So the unique topographical challenges. So there's a significant elevation change on the west and southwest sides of the property. The topography is what necessitated the construction of the existing concrete retaining wall on the west end and the dilapidated railroad ties on the southwest end. So both of those features were required in order to stabilize the land surface area for the earlier neighboring development and improvements. With the additional unique feature is that the backyard of this parcel really sits 4 feet below grade of the neighboring condominium development on the west at its most significant point, which is where the proposed 8-foot fence would be constructed. So this is a unique circumstance, and I do believe that that standard has been met. Number two, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. This 8-foot fence height variation is requested for the rear west of the property line and will not exceed the height of the existing fence that currently sits along the property line. So there will be no aesthetic or visual change there. Additionally, the fence won't be visible from the street or the front end of the property, so there's no impact on the character of the neighborhood. I think really it's just the condo association not objecting to the height variation is significant. They don't see that as an issue, and the homeowners themselves are going to be the ones who are looking at this fence. It won't be visible to others. Number three, the property in question cannot yield reasonable return or provide the owner reasonable enjoyment of the property if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in its zone. So the proposed fence won't only be an aesthetic improvement for the homeowner, but I do think that it addresses safety concerns related to the deteriorated state of the existing fences. If the homeowners are not granted the variance, and assuming the condo association retains or rebuilds their fence as it is now, the petitioner would end up with a fence that sits 2 feet below the existing neighboring fence on the west due to the unique topography, resulting in a diminished aesthetic. So allowing a variable height fence that rises to 8 feet at its highest point along that west property line would essentially level the playing field, so to speak, and provide greater enjoyment and return for the homeowners. So I do think this standard has been met as well. And with all three standards having been met, I am in favor of approving the petitioner's variation application.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you, Chair Rose. Well said, Commissioner Snyder. I really don't have much to add. I'm in agreement that the applicant has met the three standards for the variation, and as such, am inclined to approve this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other commissioner, any other discussion from? Okay, I want to say very clearly that when I first read this, I was inclined to say, no way, that really, and these were my original comments. And so I just want to say to Mr. Clare, if you have other cases that come before us, to really look, when you were talking about what's unique, your application really does not do justice to this case in particular. So to really, you might have amended it, just an aesthetic reason just isn't going to fly. But it's very clear to me that in discussion, it's the topography. This is really unique. And this is the value of our having an open hearing, is that we don't just look at the paperwork. We look at that and say, you know, just because you don't want to look at an old fence, who cares? But it becomes very clear that it's the topography, and that really is the strongest case for that. So I find myself in agreement with it. Here's the other thing, which is, and I want to echo what the applicant has said, this is about the height of a fence. As it's not about how it's going to be affixed, et cetera. That really is going to be up to engineering. And I really hope that the applicant and the condo association come to some agreement about that. I think that's going to be best for everybody. And that really leads to the comment, this is a three-stage process. So we are going to vote on the height variation. But when this gets to the Development Planning and Zoning Committee, that issue of how it's going to be affixed, the gap, they really have the ability to address that. And so I hope they really do. And perhaps by that time, you know what, the petitioner and the condo association are going to come to something reasonable. And I think that would be good for everybody, because I think that's a really reasonable solution. So engineering is going to take a look at that. So I find myself absolutely in agreement after hearing the petitioner's discussion about topography. I just wish that had been center front in the beginning. So that makes a big statement for me. So Any other comments any commissioner wishes to make? Eileen?
Thank you. I know I'm not a commissioner. Just a quick reminder, this case actually, because its fence height is heard to a close by the Zoning and Planning Commission. But we will work with the applicant on how this is going to be installed.
So you're saying that this fit will not go to DPZ, is that correct?
Correct.
I love the cases where we have final say. So actually, we have final say on this. So, but I really will trust really our department here, planning and zoning, to look at that, to work with engineering. And if there is a question, that will be resolved. So my former statement that said DPZ, Development Planning and Zoning Committee, will look at it is not true. So we have the final say. So we will move forward now to vote. I'll ask Eileen to call the roll.
Thank you. Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Callaway,
Yes.
Commissioner Garland,
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Pittman,
Yes.
Commissioner Uditsky,
Yes.
Chair Rose.
Yes. So I'm going to turn you off. Wish again, I'll just say good luck on this. It's going to be, obviously you're going to spend a lot of effort cleaning up this stuff and working on this. So pull permits, and you'll work with engineering and zoning and planning. And again, I hope you're able to come to something that's really reasonable with the condo association. It's going to be better for the whole community. So thank you and best of luck to you.
Your assistance in cleaning it up. Yeah, I haven't, I'm one of the few builders that doesn't go in for variances. So I had one variance 27 years ago. That's it. And we work in between the lines otherwise, so.
Gee, would you quit bothering us with these variances?
Just a little attention, that's all. Yeah.
All right, best of luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. We are then going to move on to case number 20 ZBA 08, 638 South Hawthorne, the Johnson variation. Is this Emily who will be taking the lead on this? All right. I'm going to ask Emily Egan to please introduce this case to us, and then we'll hear from the petitioner.
All right. Thank you. I will introduce case 20 ZBA 08. This is a request for a variation from setback, from the front setback from 25 feet to 20 feet and 9 inches to construct a 6-foot unenclosed porch. The application was filed on July 16th, 2020. The date of legal notice of public hearing was August 27th, 2020. Date of the posting of sign was August 28th, 2020. Date of first class mailing of notice is August 27th, 2020. And tonight, September 15th, 2020 is the public hearing. The applicant is Christopher Johnson, and he is also the property owner. And the applicant, both of the property owners, as well as the architect of record, are close by. They should be entering the applicant conference room shortly, and we'll be sure to have them sworn in before any testimony is taken.
Were they not sworn in the beginning, Emily? I thought...
No, they were outside at that time.
Okay, all right, so let's...
They're coming in now.
Okay.
So just one moment, thank you.
Okay.
right, both property owners as well as applicants are here with us. Welcome, come on in. Do you have any questions? I introduced your case to the commission already. And if you would like to make a statement prior to.
Before they need to be sworn in.
Yes, if you'd like to make any statements, we do need to have you sworn in. Are you okay putting on your mask? Absolutely, absolutely. No, thank you.
Do you want us here or by over there?
If you feel more comfortable, I can move the laptop to where you are, and you can stay there, if that works. All right, great. So, our court reporter will swear you in.
Okay, I'd like to ask the court reporter to please swear in. Could you stand, raise your right hand, and the court reporter will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. What we'd like to do at this point then is I'm going to handle your microphone, whether it's on or off, so you don't need to do that. But we've all looked at the material. If you've seen strange cars driving by your house, that was probably commission members. That's one of our other protocols. We ask commission members to actually look physically, take just a physical look at, the property. But we would like you to give us an idea. Again, we are looking at the 3 standards for variation. You want to address yourself to that and give us an idea of what you're thinking of for your property.
My wife, Ashley. Nice to meet you all. I've lived in Elmhurst my whole life. My wife and I moved here in 2012. Let's see, we have a son, Calvin, who's 4, and one, Henry, who's 2. And they will be the 4th generation Johnsons. So my parents, I grew up on Swain, in Elmhurst. Yeah, my parents, my dad was born in Elmhurst Hospital, as was I, and then our 2 youngest were born in the new Elmhurst Hospital. So as a family, we've been here for a while. We, as I mentioned, moved to the house in 2012, and we've kind of always wanted a front porch. Our kids are that age where they're growing and playing in the front yard, and so we just feel like this would be a way to be able to, enjoy some time with the neighbors out in front of the house and be able to watch our kids grow up. So I think that's a good opening statement. I don't know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Let me ask for any questions from commissioners. Commissioner Snyder.
Thank you, Chair Rose. And this is a question perhaps for Eileen. Was the home built before the 25-foot setback requirement?
So, the home, I do believe, was built in probably the 40s or 50s. Honestly, I'm not sure what the setback would have been back then for that particular zoning district. We do have quite a few homes in Elmhurst that do not meet the 25-foot setback or the average, but I'm not 100% sure what the setback was back then. But it's not uncommon for a home that was built, 50 plus years ago to not meet the setback.
Okay, so the 25-foot setback requirement then came into play after the home was already constructed. Is that right?
Most likely, or that particular subdivision had its own setback that was imposed is a possibility as well.
Okay. And then I have a question for, did you say the architect was available to answer questions? Well, my question, I'll just put it out there and see who can answer it. I'm wondering.
Before you do, let me just ask, is the architect sworn in? Oh, hold on.
One more time.
Yeah, the architect needs to be sworn in. Okay. Can I ask the court reporter?
Sure. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Commissioner Snyder, please ask your question.
Thank you, Chair Rose. So my question is, in looking at the plat of survey, that the front porch where it will extend to, it looks like it extends to roughly where the existing front stoop is. Does it, how, can you talk about that? How much further forward of the existing front stoop might it sit, or is it in alignment with the front stoop?
Yeah, happy to take that. And then it would be 2 feet. Are we unmuted? I don't know. So, yeah, it would. So the current stoop is directly aligned with the overhang. I don't know if that's the technical term. And we are requesting 2 additional feet further than that. So it would be 2 additional feet closer to the sidewalk for the porch.
Okay, I didn't quite see that on the plan, but it looks like on the plat of survey where the red outline is, and there's a step there as well. So you've got the stoop and then a step down. Is the porch in alignment with where the current step is?
Be
a foot in front of it.
1 foot in front of them, approximately.
Okay. And then have you guys spoken with the neighbors about the project? Are they in support? Have they expressed any concern?
We have. We did walk around to all of our neighbors and ask them if they would feel comfortable sending a letter of support. I brought those letters with us today. I think there's 9, maybe 10. We walked to, I think I handed, okay, 10. All right, so I think that's about 2/3 return rate, which is pretty good, I think. I would hope. Yeah, and actually I asked them to seal them, so I didn't, I'm assuming they're all letters of support, but
Yeah,
please feel free to open them.
Get them on board docs as soon as possible.
Yes.
Yeah, let me ask, Emily, you're opening them right now?
Yes.
Okay, and can you verify if they are letters of support or not? So we'll get back to you on that one. And then you will put those up on board docs. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Commissioner Snyder?
No, thank you.
Any other commissioners, questions, comments? Okay, let me ask, I'll go to Mike, Commissioner McCoy, yes.
Thank you. Ken, the question I have is what home on that block sits farthest out from, setback? No, do we know? I didn't see one of those maps that shows where every one of the houses. I know there was a general.
What home sits the farthest back? The farthest up was the question.
On our block?
Yeah.
I think it's 2 doors down from you.
Yeah, we think it's two doors down from us. I do know that the house on the corner of McKinley and Hawthorne, as I believe recently they told us, I talked to him on Sunday and he said they actually had applied for a variance about 4 years ago when they built that. I don't know how far back it is. But he did mention that he applied for a similar variance to build it.
646 is 19 feet.
So that house is closer to the lot line in the front. The setback is.
They're 1 foot closer than we're asking.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to call your attention, Commissioner McCoy, to the application where under B, they list all the ones here, and it looks like the address 658 is at close to what they're asking for, 21.45 feet. 668 is the 20.67 to the porch. So there's at least 2 of them, and there may be more that are similar to that.
Thank you.
Seeing none, I don't see any. I'm going to ask Mike Kopp in the public comment room. Is there anyone there to make a public comment on this?
No, there is not.
Thank you. I will ask Eileen Franz, and this will take us again another 30 to 45 seconds. She needs to check her voicemail and email to see if anyone from the public who has just been glued to this program on YouTube would like to make a public comment about this case. Okay, this will take a minute, so we'll just hang on for a moment. Okay. Yes.
While we're waiting, if you'd like me to report on the interested parties letters.
I would.
All right, all 10 letters are in support. The additional comments besides being in support are, looks fine. I'm sure it will be lovely. No concerns. And lastly, a full letter from a resident that reviewed it and was quite pleased with the thoughtfulness and how it will fit into the character of the neighborhood. I'll get these on board docs as soon as possible.
Great, thank you for that confirmation. Okay, we will now just wait until Eileen returns just to make sure that there is no one else in the public who wants to make a comment on this. So just hang on. This is one of the oddities of doing an online meeting, is that, just for the petitioner so you know, that really for the sake of openness and transparency, these are guidelines set down by the Illinois Attorney General. So if there's anyone in the public who did not come here but wants to make a comment, as long as we're online, they can do that. And we just need to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak on this case if they want to. So it seems cumbersome, I will tell you, but it's, we're all learning how to work our way around cumbersome processes in this. So if we can find anything. All right. Eileen is just coming into the chambers, and she's indicated that there are no messages indicating wanting to make public comment. So we will then, at this point, close the public hearing. So it has been our procedure that unless someone on the commission wants to wait for a week to deliberate, we would deliberate the same night as we have the public hearing. So first, let me poll everyone on the commission. Is there anyone on the commission who believes they would wish to wait and deliberate on this another evening? They, for whatever reason. Okay. Seeing none, then we're going to move into deliberation. So I would ask a commissioner to make a motion to approve the variance request and a second. So is there a commissioner who will move, and then one who would make the second?
So moved.
Commissioner Snyder, and a second? Commissioner Uditsky. Okay. Commissioner Snyder, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Rose. So reviewing the standards for variation, number one, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. Considering that this home was constructed prior to the adoption of the 25-foot setback requirement and sits forward on the property, it makes, in addition of even the smallest usable front porch, infringe on the current setback requirement. As noted in the staff report, there is currently an 18.2% lot coverage, and as proposed, it would become 20.9%. So this isn't a home that is going to that consumes a lot of land space to begin with. If the petitioner's application is approved, they'll still be well below the 30% maximum lot coverage limit. So I do think that this standard has been met, considering the year the home was built and when the setback requirements came into play. Number two, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The proposed front porch is open and airy. It does not add bulk to the house structure. It doesn't consume a volume of space. Therefore, it really wouldn't have the same kind of impact as an enclosed structure would. So the proposed porch would sit only roughly a foot forward of the existing front steps, as we heard during the testimony. And as the petitioner noted, the home at 646 Hawthorne has a 19-foot setback, and the home at 668 has a 20.67-foot setback to their front porch. So the proposed 20.7-foot setback for their new front porch would really be in alignment with those neighbors. And additionally, a well-designed front porch really creates a welcoming touch point for neighbors to connect. I did a drive-by of the site, and I agree with the petitioner and all the letters of support that the petitioner received, that the proposed front porch would be a positive enhancement to the neighborhood and does not alter the essential character. So that standard has been met. Number 3, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return or provide the owner a reasonable enjoyment of the property if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in its zone. So the petitioner did note that the property is functional as is. However, the proposed front porch is really an improvement that allows them to more fully enjoy their property and connect with neighbors. So it's a benefit to neighboring properties as well. Having a nicely renovated, improved property really supports neighboring housing values. So I also think that the standard has been met, and I'm in favor of approving this petitioner's variation application.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Uditsky.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure how you follow that. That was great, Commissioner Snyder. Very well said. You know, I'm not so sure that, I agree entirely. I'm certainly in favor of it. I think it's an improvement. But, when we go through these standards, they don't always fit into a nice little box, right? And I'm not so sure on the first and the third standard, that this variation request, right, fits within those boxes. But I think certainly with respect to the second one, right, it certainly is within the essential character of the neighborhood. If you drive up and down that street, you see plenty of, of front porches. And I think, as Commissioner Snyder indicated, that this is an improvement not only to their house, but to the neighborhood as a whole. So in general, I'm in favor of it. They've done a really nice job. The architect's done a nice job. I think it'll turn out great. Allow them to enjoy their property in a much more beneficial way, and as well add and enhance the.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Burns.
Yes, I just want to also thank Commissioner Snyder for a very thoughtful explanation of this matter. And I sort of agree with Commissioner Uditsky. I don't have any gut level objection to having a front porch, but just looking at the standards, our previous case, there was a very clear, unique circumstance where they had that massive topography change that they didn't create. In this case, this is just a house. You could still use the house. It would be better with the front porch for the occupants, obviously, because they want it. And as far as whether you can get a reasonable return or reasonable enjoyment, that seems a little soft to me. I mean, it's true you would get more enjoyment, but are you prevented from a reasonable enjoyment? So I'm kind of 51-49 on this.
Thank you. Any other commissioner? Well, I'll just say that it's interesting. I don't disagree with Commissioner Uditsky or Burns, except I don't think that standard number 1 is necessarily met, but I do think 2 and 3 are, and I'm generally in favor of this. It's not necessarily what's unique about the piece of the land, but these houses like this that were built kind of flat-faced in the 40s. This was the style, no porch, and so people who now we value porches and we think they're wonderful. So I think that I'm in favor of this. I usually put a lot more effort on, a lot more weight rather on meeting standard 1, but you know what? I think standard 2 and 3 are fine, and I actually am in support of this and will support it. and urge others on the commission to consider supporting this. So, Commissioner Callaway.
You know, in these cases, I can't help but raise Frank's name, one of our dear former commissioners, because he never met a front porch he didn't like. So it's kind of hard to go without mentioning him. But, you know, I think whenever we're discussing front porches, it's really difficult because we all like them and we want them. And I think it's, you know, we question why applicants even have to come before us on these issues, which of course there's setback requirements that dictate it, but it always is a little difficult, I think, to apply the same standards that we have to apply to what are usually more complex issues.
I totally agree. I really appreciate that comment. I think that's kind of the situation that we're in. So, any other comments from any other commissioner? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to ask Eileen to please call the roll.
Thank you. And I was out of the room for part of the public hearing, but just to point out, this is another one where the commission has the final authority this evening. Commissioner Snyder.
Yes.
Commissioner Uditsky.
Yes.
Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Commissioner Callaway.
Yes.
Commissioner Garland.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy.
Yes.
Commissioner Pittman.
Yes.
Chair Rose.
Yes. So the approval for the variance passes. And I will say to the Johnsons, you are fortunate that this does not have to go to Development Planning and Zoning Committee. So really, the approval as noted today really means that if you like, you can apply for the permit, your building permit tomorrow. Is that correct, Eileen? They can apply tomorrow? Yeah, you can apply tomorrow and move forward. I think that would be great. So good luck to you. I think it's going to be a great addition to the community.
Hey, thank you very much. I don't want to take too much time, but I really do want to thank you all for your time. I think you're all volunteers as part of this. So
yes,
one community member to the others, thank you. And honestly, I did not expect this level of depth of conversation, but it makes me feel really good that we have you guys looking out for the rest of the community. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
I'll speak for all the other commissioners, and we absolutely appreciate those comments. That's great. I think every commissioner here really takes their job seriously. So thank you and good luck to you. I look forward to, I think it's going to be a great addition. So, okay. As we mentioned earlier, the next case has been continued. The case Mariano's Fuel Center, as I understand, is the proper terminology for that, and we'll discuss that. As you know, we have a meeting next week, but there's going to be some changes in scheduling, and I'm going to ask Eileen to give us an update, kind of as much as possible through Thanksgiving. I will tell you this, that we had said we'll continue in this online format until the end of September. When Eileen polled everyone, some people wanted to come back, and we, starting in October, if you do, you need to let Eileen know that you wish to attend in person. So we will, we'll try to accommodate those, but I want to make sure everybody understands that you are not pressured to come back in person. You are welcome to do that. If you want, we need to know who and how, so we can make accommodations and make sure that we are all distanced here. But we will continue in this current format until then. You know, I'm just learning how to turn off my microphone and turn it on using the mouse. So that just as I'm getting good at it, now we're going to have to change it. So, but you are welcome, but you are not pressured to do this. So please keep that in mind. Eileen, do you want to give us an update on the schedule for the next several months?
Thank you. So we have a meeting next Tuesday, the 22nd. The only agenda item is the request from Delta Sonic. They're asking for a map amendment, conditional use permits, variations, and site consolidation. So recently, some updated information was added to board docs. The staff report will be wrapped up here in the next couple days, and we'll get the packet out to you on Friday. On October 6th, we'll have the two cases that were on the agenda this evening that were continued. Right now, we don't have anything scheduled for the second meeting in October. That could change. We haven't missed the deadline for publishing yet. That evening, though, we may have a conflict with City Hall because early voting will be taking place. So depending on the caseload that night in the agenda, we may end up having to start at 7:30, or we may need to kind of relocate ourselves in City Hall. So I will keep you updated on that. And then election night is a regularly scheduled meeting, and Chair Rose and I discussed that, and that will be canceled. And we will add an extra meeting on November 10th if needed. And then there will also be a meeting on November 17th. So if you have any conflicts with an additional meeting in November on the 10th, please let me know. We're not sure we will need it, but that is the, City Hall is a polling place. And I think for this particular election, when early voting, they're usually able to wrap things up and get out of here pretty quickly, but I don't think they'll be able to do that on the election night.
So to recap, we will have a meeting next week on the 22nd. And then on October 6th, we will have a meeting. But that
I'm sorry, Chair Rose, to interrupt. You said on the 22nd, which is, am I looking
next
at
week?
Yes, okay, sorry.
Yeah, next week we'll have a meeting. October 6th, we will have a meeting, but it's very likely that meeting will start at 7:30. I think that just makes more sense than trying to move around hither and yon at this point. We don't know about a meeting for October 20th, but we'll advise you of that. But on November 3rd, we will not have a meeting. It just is, this is a presidential election. It's complicated. There's a lot of stuff going on. And so we have decided we will cancel that meeting. So that our next regularly scheduled meeting after that will either be the 10th or the 17th, depending on volume. So just want to let you know. And again, if you intend to actually come to City Hall and participate, you would have to follow state guidelines for sure, which is masked when you come in. We'll sit you far enough away so that we would not have to wear masks during the meeting. So, but what's important is to please let Eileen know if that is your intention to do that, and let her know a couple days ahead of time. So, and I want to say again, I love hearing great comments about us from applicants where they're like, gee, I didn't know this was going to be so thoughtful and thorough. That's a great testament to all of you. So thank you very much. So any other business that, Eileen, that you want to make note of?
I just want to clarify the meeting that would potentially need to start later is the second meeting in October, which I believe is the 20th. So the October 6th meeting, we would be starting at our regular time. Early voting will not have started at that point. And if you do want to come back for meetings, we will have a computer set up for you. So you still will need to do it through WebEx with headphones, but we will have a computer set up in the chambers with me and Susan. There's plenty of space in here for us to distance if anyone would prefer to come back to participate. Just let me know.
And large amounts of Clorox is available, so just to let you know. Anyone have any other business? Okay, then we'll need a motion to adjourn, a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
That was Commissioner Uditsky.
Yes.
Second by?
Second.
Who?
Garland.
Commissioner Garland seconds that. Thank you. All right, we're going to have to call the roll again on this, so I'll ask Eileen to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Uditsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Garland,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Callaway,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner McQuaid,
Yes.
Commissioner Pittman,
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Chair Rose.
Yes, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.